Okay, so the piece that was in a dispatch on Ki Teitzei is actually based off a pasuk from Shoftim. What they often do in their Meir dispatches is he says something one week, and it gets put out for the next week because it was said on Shabbos. So the next week and the following year it'll get included in that week, whatever. Anyway, so it's actually, this is from Shoftim. But I think it really, first of all, it's really all about tshuva, so it relates to this time anyway. And then also, I think there's a very obvious connection to our parsha as well. So I wanted to learn it because it really caught my attention as an amazing chiddush, amazing Torah here. So let's go. So this is in the gray box on the sheet. The pasuk from last week's parsha says, "Tzedek, tzedek tirdof." Now you should chase after righteousness. Let's call it. So it says Itche Meir, Hine Isa Barambam. We have in the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva. Umahi hatshuva. What is tshuva? Hu sheyazov hachote cheto, that you leave your sin. V'yasiru mimachshavto, and you remove it from, you remove it from your mind. V'yigmor belibo shelo yasehu od, and you decide in your heart that you won't do it again. Shenemar Yazov Rasha Darko, as it says that the Rasha leaves his way. V'gomer. V'chein yisnachem al sha'avar, and you have nechama, right? We think of nechama as comfort, but you yisnachem, like you regret. People point out that the word nun ches mem at its core really means to like have a change in perspective, which is what comfort is as well. Like when you have nechama, when you're able to look at something differently than you did before. At one point, what you experience has a lot of pain. Nechama is that you can experience it differently than you had been. So v'yisnachem is to change the way you're looking at it. So you're yisnachem al sha'avar, you're regretting what you did in the past. Shenemar ki achrei shuvi nichamti v'yayir olav yodea talumos. And when you do that, when you have real gemiras das, a real clarity in your mind that you are not returning to this chait, then Hashem will be made on you, yoyed olav yodea talumos. Because think about it, when you're standing there doing tshuva, right? Svardim, you already started slichos here. You're standing there doing tshuva. We should all already be doing tshuva, but whatever. Either way, you're standing there doing tshuva. You're not doing anything yet. You're not doing anything different. So, like, what does it mean? Like, nothing's changed. You're not back there in the moment of chait, not doing the chait. That's the Rambam says that's tshuva gemura. But what if the chait's not in front of you right now? So, what does your tshuva mean? So the Rambam explains that you're doing tshuva internally. Why does it have significance? Why does it land? Why does it chal? Because Hashem, who knows the inner world of a person, he's Yodea Talumos, he knows the hidden world, he sees your inside world, and he's made on you, Shelo Yashuv Lezeh Hachit La'olam, that you'll never go back to this.
Not just because it's bolded, but what's your understanding of the Yigmar Belibai Shalei Hasai?
I just took it as simple, and I didn't even think about the fact that it's bolded. But I just took it as simple. It means that you're deciding, like Yigmar Belibo, that you're deciding, but it means Yigmar Belibo is a language not just of like I have a thought not to do it. It means that it's like there's like a conclusion, like I'm having a gemiras das, like it's really a serious thought.
Isn't that like always like? Yeah, I never wanted to.
Right. Oh, good. So let's see. That's what this whole piece is about, which maybe is why it's bolded. Let's see. So Hashem will be made on you. That's the Rambam. So he says something now which is awesome. I had never heard or seen before. It's such a chiddush, but it's so awesome. One of the Acharonim want to explain in the Rambam that when the Rambam says that your tshuva needs to be such that you have such a clarity, a gemiras das, a conviction that you'll never go back to it, that Hashem is made on you, you'll never go back to it. Dahainu, what does that mean? What it means is that you'll have that Hashem is made on you, that you're going to be mechazik yourself in all future times to do tshuva from this chet. Meaning, he's going to speak it out. V'rotza lomar, what does this mean? Sheyoyed olav, that Hashem is made on you, shelo yashuv lasus hachet, beli litroach ulechapes b'chol eis lachsor b'tshuva v'limtzo eisos eich lo lehikashel. It doesn't mean that you're never going to do it again. It means you're never going to do it again without trying not to do it again. Meaning you're never going to do it again in the way that you just did it. Meaning, I just fell to this chet. Now I'm doing tshuva. I'm saying I'm never going to do it again. What do you mean I'm never going to do it again? We all know the reality, which is what you were asking. Like, we all know. Like, let's be real, right? So then how does anyone ever do sincere tshuva? What he's saying is that the tshuva is I'm never going to go back and do it in a way that was the way I just fell to do it. Because what I'm committing to is that I'm going to struggle with this. I'm going to work at this. Which means, therefore, that even if I do it again, but that's different than what I just did. Because the future doing of it is a different doing of it than the doing of it that just happened. Because what I'm really committing to is that I am working on this. And that's what Hashem will be made on you. Hashem will be made to make your tshuva chal. Hashem will be made that you'll never be chote without trying not to be chote, at whatever level that means. Let's see, he's going to speak this out more. V'zeh pirush mechudash. This is a chiddush. This is a wild chiddush, right?
Does he say that often?
Does he say that pirush mechudash? I don't know. I wish I was holding that to say. I don't know. It's a wild chiddush. Achmatzinu says Rav Yitzchak, but we find smach lezeh b'divrei Morenu Reb Nassan Zal. We find that in the words of Reb Nassan, we find something just like this. Dihine Ye'uyim b'Likutei Halachos. That if you look in Likutei Halachos from Reb Nassan, sheherich levar inyan kedushas Eretz Yisrael. That Reb Nassan was talking at length about the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. Shehi hakedusha hachi gedola. That this is the greatest kedusha, the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. Ikar hatachlis v'chol kedusha. The kedusha of Eretz Yisrael is the tachlis of everything, and all kedusha. V'chol avodas Hashem shayach le'inyan kedusha Eretz Yisrael. And all avodas Hashem is connected in some way to the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. Because of Sham, and Rabbi Nassan says there, shafilu gedolei tzadikim hayalahem kashem ma'od likayis Eretz Yisrael. Even the greatest tzadikim had a very difficult time getting to Eretz Yisrael. Ukechol shahayu yoser gedolim, and actually, dafka, the bigger the tzaddik was, the more difficult of a time he had getting to Eretz Yisrael. The af kasher zachu likanis Eretz Yisrael, and even when they were zocher to get to Eretz Yisrael, hayutzrichem shuv lachzor l'chol, and there were many of them who did get there, but then they had to go back. Ki efshar b'pam achas likanis Eretz Yisrael v'ligmor kol tikun hanitzotzin, because it's impossible. Efshar, it's very clear. Efshar, it's impossible that in one shot you can get to Eretz Yisrael. Meaning he's talking literally about Eretz Yisrael, but he's also talking conceptually. Eretz Yisrael is representing the place of total Kedusha. The bigger the person is, the harder it is for them to get to Eretz Yisrael, meaning to the land of Kedusha. Not just geographically, but meaning to the land of Kedusha, to the place of Kedusha. And it's impossible that you can get there in one shot. It's impossible.
Does he often, it's just like, I've never heard Eretz Yisrael spoken of as like a metaphor before.
So that's definitely like a Chasidus Mahalach, like Eretz Yisrael. I mean, in Chasidus, really, the truth is everything is like that. So everything is the thing that it is, plus a expression of a certain. I don't want to say just a metaphor, because it's more than a metaphor. It's that it's a representation of a characteristic, a spiritual characteristic that exists beyond the thing itself.
It's the physical piece in the spiritual.
Exactly, right? So that's true about people, it's true about places, it's true about times, right? Like Pesach is Pesach, and the time of Pesach is the time of Pesach. But Pesach is also more than the 7 days of Pesach. Pesach is a representation of a certain spiritual quality that can exist outside of the 7 days of Pesach. Now, in the 7 days of Pesach, that spiritual quality is in full force. But so everything is the thing that it is, plus being a representation or an expression of a certain characteristic that goes beyond that. Right? So Eretz Yisrael, certainly you find in Chassidus that kind of concept. Yeah. So getting to Eretz Yisrael means getting to full Kedusha. So it's impossible, he says, to get to Eretz Yisrael, to get to full Kedusha, full Tikkun Hanitzotzin, in one shot. It doesn't happen. V'yadua, and we know that Filu Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Nachman, Umoreinu Rabbi Nassan, Shezachu Likanis L'Eretz Yisrael, First of all, if you read the story of Rabbi Nachman I'm not familiar with Rabbi Nassan's story getting to Eretz Yisrael, but if you read Rabbi Nachman's story of getting to Eretz Yisrael, it's wild. I mean, the amount of...
He didn't travel with him?
I don't think so, but I don't remember. I know maybe they went. Someone did travel with him. For some reason, I think it wasn't Rabbi Nassan, but I could also be totally wrong. Maybe it was Rabbi Nassan. I don't know. But the story of Rabbi Nachman trying to get to Eretz Yisrael is like the amount of difficulty is unimaginable. Like it's actually nuts. And then he had to leave. Va'ayin sham shabir bezeh kol inyan hamaraglim. Maybe Nassan there in Likutei Halachos, when he's talking about this, he explains the whole story of the Meraglim based on this idea. Sheklal Yisrael ratzu lishloach tchila hamaraglim l'Eretz Yisrael. Klal Yisrael wanted to send the Meraglim to Eretz Yisrael. Shehem hayug dolei tzadikim. These were the biggest tzadikim. Shehem yikansu la'aretz v'yaschil l'sakin v'shuv yatzu misham. Because they understood why did Klal Yisrael want to send the Meraglim? Is an amazing shot. They wanted to send the Meraglim because they understood you can't get to Eretz Yisrael in one shot. So if we're the ones to go in first, what's going to happen? We're going to have to leave because it's impossible. So we want to send the Meraglim because then they're going to go in, they're going to start the work, they're going to have to leave because no one can get there in one shot, and then we'll go back after, and then we won't have to leave because it won't be the first time going, and nothing happens right away. That's what their thinking was. Then we can go in. Ella, but so what happened? But it didn't work out because the klipa took over the meraglim, whatever that means exactly. And now he explains a little bit more what that means. So Rabbi Nachman says now, after quoting that from Rabbi Nassan, we need to understand a foundational principle in all matters of kedusha. The way to get to anything in kedusha, al yidei she'osim oso shuv v'shuv ad shezochem lahagia alav. The only way to get to the goal that you're trying to arrive at in kedusha is to do it again and again and again and again until you get there. There is no other way. There's no cheat. There's no shortcut. There's no quick fix. There is nothing that works besides resilience, stubbornness, being mechazik yourself, and just going again and again and again. However, im magia harega. Now he says something, an important kind of caveat to this. If the moment comes, sheyecholim lahagia lekadusha, that there's an openness to kedusha, that you could grab it in that moment. Meaning normally there is no moment to grab it. Normally it's just a grind. It's just try again and try again and try again and try again. But if there's an opening in one moment, then you have to grab it. And you have to do anything you can do to grab it. You have to be moser nefesh. And this was the mistake of the Meraglim. That there was apparently some meaning what I think he's trying to say is that if you take this idea of that you'll never get there right away, and you need to just try again and try again and try again. On the one hand, that gives tremendous chizuk. But on the other hand, it could actually lead a person to missing opportunities. Because you might, if you think that you can never just get it, and it's always a matter of a slow process of working towards something, then there could be a moment of an opportunity for you, and you're just not going to grab it because you're thinking, well, anyway, nothing ever really gets you. It's a matter of like a long-term process. So I'm not going to jump on an opportunity because it's just a matter of the resilience in the long term. So you could miss an opportunity because of this. Like, so that's what he's saying.
By your method, you only see
right.
one way to do it. You can't even see other ways to go.
Exactly. That's a very good way of putting it. Right. If you become so tied to the discipline of it, then you're gonna lose the possibility of spontaneity, right? That could present itself, right? That's a good way of putting it. You're so blinded by your own methodology to it, which on the one hand you need. But that's why I think he's going out of his way to balance it out by saying, but when a moment comes, don't think that you can't seize the moment, because who knows? And that goes in both directions. Literally, who knows? Meaning it might be nothing. It might lead to nothing, because most of the time, the work is a work of just try again and just try again. And whatever you thought was going to be the ticket to make it finished probably wasn't. And you'd have to just try again. And then that time you thought it was it? No, you have to just try again. But don't let that make you think not to grab the moment when there is a moment that presents itself to you. And that was the problem of the Meraglim, that apparently, I don't know exactly what this means, but apparently the Meraglim had a moment that they could have grabbed, and they didn't. They just saw it as, okay, we're going in to pave the way, and then we're leaving because you can't really get there right away anyway. V'zeh gam yisod tshuva. So says Ravitcher Meir, this is the yisod of tshuva. Shetzarech lashuv od v'od, that we have to do tshuva again and again, ad shezochem l'tshuva shlema, until we get to complete tshuva. V'lo lashuv od l'chet, and then we don't go back to l'chet. Uv'zeh yesh levai divrei haRambam k'fi ha'perish hanal. Now we can explain the Rambam according to that idea that was said before. That what does it mean? And here the way he says it, I think, is like even more radical than the way that he quoted the Achron before. And it's funny because before he said that the Achron is that Perish Mechudesh, but the way he says it now, I think, is like even more Mechudesh, and it's amazing. What does it mean? What does it mean that I do tshuva with such a conviction that I won't go back to it, that the knower of all secrets, Hashem, will be Meir, will testify about me that I'm never going to go back? What do you mean? We all know we're going to mess up again. So what does it mean? Hainu shemekabel alatzmo loshuv od v'od b'chol pam. The reason I think this is more radical is because the way that he quoted the Achron before was that the tshuva is such that I am committed that I'm never going to go back to this chait in the same way I just did, meaning I'm always going to be working at it. I'm not going to ever give into it easily. I might fall to it again, but I'm never going to fall easily. I'm never going to fall just because I don't care. I'm committed to working on it. So I'm going to try not to. I might in the end lose, but I'm going to try not to. But the way Ravitcher Meir is saying it now is even more extreme, I think, because he's saying that what is it that I have to take upon myself? That any time, what is Hashem going to be made on me? That I'm a kabel on myself. That any time I fall in the future, I'm going to do tshuva and try again. That's tshuva. Tshuva is that I'm committing, not that I won't fall to the sin. Tshuva is that I'm committing that whenever I fall, I will keep working at it. I will do tshuva on it. So my tshuva now is a commitment to do as many tshuvas as I will need in the future. That's a wild idea. The tshuva that Hashem wants of you is not, if you stop and think about it, it really actually makes sense. It's just a wild idea because it's so different than what we're used to, and because it's not the way it sounds in the language of the Rambam. But it really makes sense because what else does Hashem, Hashem knows us. Like Hashem is not naive. Hashem knows that we can do tshuva with as much sincerity as we possibly can, but in the end of the day, if we're actually sincere, we all know that we fall again. So what does Hashem want from us? So Ravitcher Meir is saying, what Hashem wants and what really tshuva is the commitment that I will do tshuva forever. That I will do, no matter how many times I fall, I'm still going to do tshuva again. I'm never going to give up on trying to improve in this way, to get better at it. Until I get to Eretz Yisrael, until I get there, I'll keep working at it. I can walk up to the border of Eretz Yisrael and get pushed back 100 miles, and I'll start walking again. And then I can come up from a different entrance, and I'll get knocked down, and I'll get up. And this is what the pasuk says, that you chase after tzedek. That's the lashon. I think the way he's explaining it now is tzedek tirdof. You have to chase again and again. It's not just one. You have to chase after it, and it's multiple. Why? What's the end of the pasuk? L'man tichya, so that you can live v'yarashta es haaretz, and you can inherit the land of Eretz Yisrael. Meaning, if you chase after tzedek and you never give up on chasing of it, and you fall again and you mess up again, but you never give up on continuing to chase after it, then what does that lead to? When do you stop chasing? Never, until v'yarashta es haaretz. Shetzarich lirdof v'lachzor v'lirdof ad shezochem liyirishas haaretz. You chase after it, you go turn around again, chase after it, until you're zocha to yirishas haaretz. Ki efshar, now he reiterates, ki efshar lahagia b'pam achas l'chol hakadusha v'hatshuva, because it is impossible. That's why I love this language. It's like he's not just giving you a consolation. He's not just saying to feel better about yourself when you feel that. He's saying it's not possible. There is no such thing as getting to kedusha and shuva in one shot. So I have a bad midah of whatever it is. I have a midah of jealousy. I have a midah of kas. I have a midah of gaiva. Whatever it is that I'm working on. There is no such thing at fixing it. What there is instead, elatzarich lachzor shuv v'shuv, is to go back again and again, ad shezochem v'chinas hapanim, until you're zocha to b'chinas panim, as a reference to the b'china of panim b'panim, meaning that you're facing it directly, that you really have it, you've attained it. This is what it means to chase after tzedek. Shekol madrega kol zman shein magiyam eleh b'shleimus, that every level that you don't get to it completely yet, tzarich lachzor shuv v'shuv v'lirdofosa, ad shezochem lahagil madrega nitzchis b'chinas panim, until you get to the eternal level of it where you've actually really been koneh. V'chein hu b'darkei tshuva shetzarich lachzor v'lashuv od v'od k'ma shekasav b'likutei Moharan. You have to do tshuva again and again and again, as it is explained in Likutei Moharan, Siman Vav. Shetzarich tshuva al tshuva, that we have to do tshuva on our tshuva, because what happens when you do tshuva? You get to a new level. When you get to a new level, you look back at the tshuva you did and you realize, well, on my level now, that tshuva was like nice, but I can do an even better tshuva now. So now I do an even better tshuva, but now what? Now I'm at a higher level. So now I look back on the tshuva, and that goes on endlessly. And that's the point. It goes endlessly.
I was going to ask on that, like the physical Eretz Yisrael is like a place, but like how do you know when you've gotten to Eretz Yisrael? What's a clear vision? Like, how do you have a clear vision of that?
Yeah. I mean, I would have said that, it's interesting because he makes it sound here like there is such thing as getting there. I would have thought that we don't ever get there. But I think that maybe, I don't know if I'm reading it correctly, that in this last line, it's a little bit confusing, because in this last line, what he's bringing up is where Rabbi Nachman says in Torah Vav, and in Torah Vav what Rabbi Nachman says is that you never get there because there is no there, it's endless. Because whenever you get there, you now have an appreciation of the fact that there's more. And when you get to the more, that just opens up an appreciation that there's more, because Hashem is endless, so the levels of Kedusha are endless, right? So on the one hand, he's making it sound like there is some there that you can get to, but on the other hand, he is also quoting this Likutei Moharan, which is that you would do tshuva on your tshuva, and what Rabbi Nachman explains there is tshuva on your tshuva is endless. That's why tshuva is Rabbi Nachman says there is from the Shem Hashem of Itche, right? Is that I will, it's in the future, because it's always, it's forever, it's perpetual tshuva, because it's all relative. So I'm not sure what the answer is. That you get to a point where, the way he's describing it is that you get to a point where your whatever it is that you accomplished becomes permanent. Meaning, before I answer your question in that deeper way, on a simple level, right? What he's saying, I just don't know if he means that you ever actually get there. But what he's saying is that when I have a moment that I decide and I have clarity, I don't ever want to do X again, right? So in that moment, I've arrived at Eretz Yisrael. I'm there in that moment, right? I'm there. The problem is that I get kicked out of Eretz Yisrael. The next time I told myself I'm not eating the fried chicken again after after 10 o'clock at night, whatever. And in that moment, I'm in Eretz Yisrael. I don't know if that's, the Indian, whatever. I'm never speaking Lashon Hara again. And I'm in Eretz Yisrael now about that. Until I'm kicked out when I'm at the next Shabbos meal and we're talking about, what we don't like about our shul on Yom Noraim, right? And now I just got kicked out of Eretz Yisrael. So what he's saying, though, is that you can get to a point where you don't get kicked out. Like, you can get to a point where when the situation presents itself, like, it doesn't do that to you. It doesn't kick you out anymore, right? As opposed to when it's still kicking you out, then the avoda is to go back in and then kick you out and go back in. And you got kicked out, but go back in and keep going back in again and again and again and again and again, right? I'm just not sure if he's saying you actually ever could get there permanently. It sounds like he is saying that, but I'm surprised that it sounds like he's saying that. So that's why I'm not sure. Okay. The Isa b'chsam sofer. It says in the Chsam Sofer. It's interesting. Usually when Ravitch Meir quotes the Chsam Sofer, he says Zakeni, because I think it's his his great something grandfather. Shekol Yehudi Sarach lahagia le'inyan Moshe Rabbeinu. That every Jew is supposed to get to the inyan of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is what? Shehu lehikanes la'eretz Yisrael. So I'm not sure what exactly he means, because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't get to Eretz Yisrael. But I think he means the inyan of trying to get into Eretz Yisrael. That's how I'm understanding it. That's the inyan of Moshe Rabbeinu, is this endless attempt at getting into Eretz Yisrael. And that's what he's telling us about here, that the inyan is not even really to be there. The inyan is to be trying to get in all the time. But I'm not sure, because that's not exactly what he says. The inyan Moshe Rabbeinu shehu lihi kanes l'Eretz Yisrael, to get in. Maybe that is what he means, not to be in Eretz Yisrael, but to be getting into Eretz Yisrael. V'tzarach lahagia lahatorah dechakika. Okay, well, let's skip here for a second. Okay, I mean this is the main part of what I wanted to see from this piece here. He goes on a little bit interesting, but it's like he goes a little bit of side point. What I wanted to do is learn a Torah in Likutei Moharan that is very much on this inyan. I was just speaking about it with Avram Nasano, and he was telling me that apparently this Torah, I had not known this. I just found it on Sefaria when I was looking through different things. But apparently this Torah in the Likutei Moharan is known as like a very unique, special Torah in Rabbi Nachman. That it was like that it was apparently it's known as some sort of like open letter that like Rabbi Nachman was like writing like for all of us. So which makes a lot of sense when you'll see it, and it's mamish on this inyan. Okay, so let's learn together. It's not the Torah that Ravitch Meir was quoting of Torah Vav. Torah Vav is the classic Torah that everyone learns during Elul on Tshuva, but this is a different. This is in Tinyana Memches. Okay, so if you go to the bottom, Rabbi Nachman says like this: Kisha Adam nichnas ba'avodas Hashem. When a person enters into Avodas Hashem, Azai haderech shemarin lo hisrachkos. The way is that he is shown a very far distance, like you were talking about the finish line before. Like it looks endlessly far away. V'nidmelo shemarchikin oso milamala, and the person experiences it as if they're being pushed away from above. Now, when he says Adam nichnas b'avodas Hashem, I don't think he means only like a Baal Tshuva, like someone, what we call a Baal Tshuva, like someone who's just starting. He means every time we try to be machnes again, every time we try to say, you know what, I want to take davening more seriously now. I want to take benching more seriously. I want to take my shmir seinai more seriously. I want to take my kvias itim in having a seder and learning. I want to take more. Anytime we enter into some avoda, that's what he's referring to. What happens? It feels like the goal we have is very far from us. Now it's interesting. I could just read what he's saying and just go with it. But the truth is, I obviously I'm not saying he's wrong, because he's right. but it's interesting. If I'm honest about it, I don't know that I think that that's always the case. I actually think oftentimes when people start at something, they actually have a sense of success kind of right away. It gets hard afterwards. But very often the initial experience is an experience of feeling like, feeling like there's an initial, burst of inspiration, there's an initial feeling of like, I can do this, right? And it actually feels attainable. It's as time goes on that it becomes more difficult. So how do you understand that with what he says here? I'm not sure. It could be that it's just different times, and he's talking about someone who does experience a lot of distance. Like, that's totally fine. He's talking about an experience, not like what I'm describing. He's talking about an experience when someone does have that sense in the beginning of like, no, this is really far from me. Or if I'm right, that in the beginning, oftentimes it actually is easier, then what he's saying is, so long as it was that easy part, that wasn't called nichnas b'avodas Hashem. The nichnas b'avodas Hashem, when are you really entering avodas Hashem? Like avodas Hashem, when are you entering that? That only begin. You could have had 2 months of amazing davening. That wasn't called nichnas b'avodas Hashem yet. I'm not sure I like that so much, but I'm just thinking out loud here, right? When is it called nichnas b'avodas Hashem? The moment when it feels really, really distant. And that's what he's addressing. The moment when it feels really distant, that's called avodas Hashem. And what do you do with that? So he says, so most people, what they do is they interpret that, v'nidmelo, you interpret that feeling of distance as being pushed away. Meaning, he's saying there's 2 things that happen here. The first thing is that you feel a sense of being very distant from what you want. But that's just kind of a feeling. The question is, how do you interpret that? So what he's saying is most of us, consciously or unconsciously, interpret the feeling of distance, the story we make up about the distance that we're noticing. The story we make up is that I'm being distanced because Hashem doesn't want me. Like Hashem is pushing me away. That whatever I'm trying to do is not going to go. Like it's not wanted, it's not desired, and it's not going to work. I'm being pushed away. So notice those are 2 different things, right? Because we can feel the feeling of distance, but that doesn't mean we have to interpret in that way. It's the interpretation that's the problem, right? But the truth is that interpretation of distance is wrong. Because the truth is, be'emes, all distancing is really closeness. So what that means that the distance is closeness is a topic that he describes in other places, which is not the part I want to get into right now. But what I want to get into is what he continues to describe, which is what do you do when you feel that distance? So he says, a person needs to mechazik themselves. You need to strengthen yourself. Ma'od ma'od. His chasko is gadol, ma'od ma'od. He's like really emphasizing this to make sure that you don't fall in your mind. Chas v'shalom. If you see that many days have passed, many years have passed, right? Like how many of us give up on working on something that it's like already years we tried and we feel like we didn't get anywhere, so we give up on it. He's saying you may already have had multiple days of working on it, but you might have even been years of working on something. That you're trying, you really are trying. And some people think, if I've been trying something for years and I haven't been successful yet, it probably means I'm not trying. It means I'm doing something wrong. That's one of the ways that we interpret it. But what Rabbi Nachman is saying, that is someone being no fail b'daito. You're allowing the lack of success to be interpreted, or the seeming lack of success, to be interpreted in a negative way. And that's what he's telling us to make sure we're careful about. Because the truth is, you could be working on something for years, and you could have actually been working on it. And you may have even been working on it in the right way. Don't assume that you're doing something wrong. Va'adayin hu rachok ma'od, and you're still far from it. You still haven't made that turn and seeing the point 2 left. It's still not there. V'lo hischel klal lichnos l'shari kedusha. You still don't feel like you've entered into the sha'arim of kedusha, to the gates of kedusha. Ki roa atzmo shu malei adayin avios v'gashmios v'hurhurim v'bulbulim gedolim. You see yourself and you still feel that you're still filled with avios, like thickness, like you're thick, right? You're v'gashmios and physicality, v'hurhurim, and thinking about all sorts of things, v'bulbulim and confusions gedolim. You're filled with all of that. And everything that you want to accomplish in Avodas Hashem, in Kedusha, ein manichno, so they're not letting you. You're not there. You're not getting there. V'nidmelo ki'ilu ein Hashem yisbarach mistakel of klal, and it feels like Hashem is not even looking at me. How could He look at me? I'm so filled with so much not goodness. The ein rotze klal b'avodas. He doesn't want I've been working on it, so obviously He doesn't even want it. Because I see every time I scream out to Hashem, and I plead, I fall in front of Hashem. Yisbarach, Hashem should help me. I ask Hashem to help me. But He hasn't helped yet. At least it seems like He hasn't helped yet. So what do I assume? I assume that Hashem's not looking at me. He's not turning to me. Hashem doesn't want me at all. Turning the page. For all of these things and anything like it, we need a lot of chizuk. To mechazik ourselves a lot. Not to look at any of this, meaning not to look at results too much. Don't look at your results. The results are not what you should be paying attention to, because that sends you into all these negative interpretations. Because you have no ability to know what your result means. You have no way of knowing what to make of the result. Because maybe the reason that the result is that you're still struggling with this. Maybe it's because Hashem wants you to still struggle with it. Maybe it's because it seems to you like you've not made progress, but really in Hashem's eyes you have made progress. You have no idea how to interpret the results, so don't pay attention to the results. V'chol hanal avar al kol tzadikim. It says Rabbi Nachman, and this is something that we find, I think for most of us, at least for me, for sure, it feels impossible to believe this. It's such an avoda to believe what he's writing here. It feels like a cute, nice thing he's telling us because he's just trying to make us feel better, but it's just like fluffy, feel better. I don't believe it, but he's saying now, all the tzaddikim experienced what I'm describing now. Kol hanal, this feeling of trying and getting to Teretz Yisrael, and it's locked. I can't get in. Getting inside, but then being kicked out 2 seconds later. Getting even further in and thinking I'm there, but then all of a sudden I'm like totally opposite end of the world. And trying again and again and again and not getting there. I think that's me. I think that's us. No offense to you guys. I think that's us, normal people, right? I don't think Rav Itche Meir experiences that. I don't believe that Rabbi Nachman experienced that. But he's telling us he did. Rabbi Nachman's telling us he did, and he writes explicitly many times in many places that he did. It's so hard to believe. Kasher shamanu mipiem befeirush. That Rabbi Nachman saying we heard the tzaddikim tell us this explicitly. Shenin melhem shashem yisbarach ein mistakel uponei lehem klal. That the tzaddikim say, I have had times that I feel that Hashem is not looking at me. Hashem doesn't want me. Why? Because they say that they've been working on something for so much, so long, so intensely, but they still feel that they're just so far. And if they hadn't been mechazik themselves not to look at the results, they never would have continued going weiter. They would have just stayed where they were. They would have given up. And they would never would have been zoche to what they were zoche. And this, I think, is when Asana was telling me that this Torah is referred to as like a letter that he wrote to us, because you'll see the next words. V'haklal, Rabbi Nachman says the principle, the rule is like this, and it's so beautiful. Ahuvi achi. Rabbi Nachman's saying to us now. He's like writing us a letter. My beloved, my brother. He's like talking to us like a peer. Rabbi Nachman is saying, Ahuvi achi. He's saying that to me, to you. Chazek v'ametz ma'od, ve'ematz ma'od. Strengthen yourself and have courage and be strong. Ve'echoz atzmacha, b'chol hakochos, and grab onto yourself and strengthen yourself with all your kochos. Lishar yakayim avodosecha, to stand, to keep standing, to stay standing in your avoda. Notice, he's not even saying to do more. He's saying just to stay standing. Lisha'er kayim avodosecha, to stay upright in your avoda. Va'al tachush va'al tistakel klal al kol hanalo kayotze bezeh, and not to worry, not to be looking at all the things we were talking about until now, of like the results and what it looks like and where am I holding, where am I not holding. It's not about where you're holding. It's about what you're trying to do. What's the work you're doing? What's the effort you're doing? And if you're very far, it seems to you, and you feel like you're being pogame at every moment against Hashem, you're going against Hashem at every moment. Nonetheless, with all of this, still, Teda, you need to know, a person who is so megusham, so swallowed up and buried in this physical world, so just immersed in the physicality and the nothingness of this world, but you're immersed in it. Every movement, tnua is a movement. I mean, I move my finger, that's called a tnua. Like nothing, like I just go like that. That's a tnua. Every movement, shumenatik atzmo, that I remove myself, ma'at, just a tiny bit, not successful even, just a movement of it, min gashmiuso, away from my swallowed upness in the gashmius, upona la Hashem Yisbarach, and I turn my head to face Hashem. He gedola v'yikara ma'od ma'od. It is huge and it is precious, ma'od ma'od. And even the smallest point, that you remove yourself from the gashmius to Hashem, who rats kama v'kama alafim parsos b'elyomas elyonim. In this world, it might look like you've done almost nothing. Like you look at your phone one time less a day, or not even one time less, like 1/2 a second less in the time you're looking at it. Or you work on not looking at whatever you shouldn't be looking at, or saying what you shouldn't be saying, or whatever it might be, or doing something positive more than you previously were doing. Could be positive too, right? But you're only doing the tiniest amount that in the physical world is almost even imperceptible. It doesn't even look like it's any different. But in the spiritual world, you just ran thousands and thousands of leaps. That's what he says. When you understand the maisa, that story of the tzaddik that became overwhelmed with atzvus, kamuva etzleinu, as we know. I'm not sure if he's referring to a Rabbi Nachman story that I'm not familiar with, so I apologize. I'm not sure what that's referring to. But when you know this inyan that we're talking about, yismach ma'od, that can bring you simcha. V'yachazik atzmo b'simcha tamid, and you need to do this work with simcha. Because when we're talking about this resilience and this grit, this strengthening of yourself, this stubbornness to stand strong against Hashem, it's not from a place of heaviness. It's not from a place of sadness. It's from a place of simcha. Vida, and you need to know that right when a person wants to enter into Avodas Hashem, as I takef he aveira gedola kishiyesh lo atzvus. If you allow sadness to overtake you, that is an aveira gedola, chas v'shalom. Ki atzvus he sitra achar. Atzvus, sadness, is the other side. The Hashem Yisbarach sonei osa. And what Hashem hates is not that you're still struggling. What Hashem hates is not that you fell again. It's not that you messed up again. What Hashem hates is that you're be'atzvus. Because if you're be'atzvus, you're not going to make progress. V'tzarech lios akshan gadol avodas Hashem, and you have to be an action. You have to be stubborn, right? Klal Yisrael are called am kshei oref, right? Stubborn, a stiff-necked people, typically in a negative way, but it's from a trait of positivity. We are stubborn. We have to be stubborn in our avodas Hashem, meaning when we're pushed back, we're stubborn about it. We're still standing. You can't kick me out of Eretz Yisrael. You can kick me out of Eretz Yisrael, but you can't stop me from trying to get back. Livlina lahaniach makomo. You can't remove me from my place so easily. It's not going to work. We don't allow it. Whatever little bit I've started, no matter what comes over me, no matter what comes upon me or against me, I'm not just giving it up. Remember this well. Know this well. You're going to need this. Know this because you're going to need it. When you start serving Hashem, you need stubbornness in your avodas Hashem to be strong. To hold your place. Hold your place. Even if they're pushing you down, and maybe they knock you over, but you stand up again. Chas v'shalom. B'chol pam, each time. Sometimes a person is knocked over in their avodah, as we all know. But you still do what you need to do. You do your job. because it's not about the results. It's about doing your job. Whether the company makes money, that's not your responsibility in this enterprise, in this organization. That's not your cheshbon. Your cheshbon is are you trying to show up? Are you trying to do the work you're supposed to do? Not what the spreadsheet shows at the end of the day. That's not your cheshbon. Your cheshbon is lasos es shalo. It's what you're doing, not what the results are. Lasos mashe yuchal b'avodas Hashem. Va'al yaniach atzma lipo legamrei chas v'shalom. Do not allow yourself to fall. He doesn't mean don't allow yourself to fall in what happens. Don't allow yourself to fall in your mind. Because all the things that you struggle with are necessary. That's the other thing. It's not just that what he's saying is sometimes when people give this message, it's like, even though it's all so bad, pick yourself up again. He's saying, no, it's not even though it's all so bad. He's saying you need to go through this. That's the whole thing. You need to be going through the struggle of not getting there, of getting there and getting kicked out. That's why you need to interpret the Rambam. And when the Rambam says that your tshuva is you're not going to go back to it doesn't mean you're not going to go back to it because you need to fall again. Why do you need to fall again? I have no idea. But that's not in your department. You don't need to know that answer. Hashem knows that. You're not in charge of your task in this company is not to understand why the profits are the way they are, or why the losses are the way they are. That's not your job in the company. Your job is to show up and do your job. So the tshuva that we can do is the tshuva to say, I'm never going to stop trying. That's tshuva. Tshuva is to say to Hashem, and that Hashem will see and be Meir on us, that this person, even when they fall, because I'm going to make them fall, because they need to fall for whatever reason, they're not going to give up after they fall. That's tshuva. Tshuva is, I'm not going to give up after I fall. They have to happen. Before you can get into the real gates of Kedusha. And again, the tzaddikim, the true tzaddikim, go through this. And just know one more thing, that sometimes there's a person who's standing right next to the opening of Kedusha, right there, the door is open. But they don't grab it. They suddenly run backwards away. They've been trying and fighting for it all their lives, and it's finally right in front of them, and they run away from it. Why? Because they're filled with all these self-doubts that have been plaguing them because they were wondering and interpreting negatively all those years, why was I not successful? So now it's right in front of them, and they can't even take it because they already hate themselves so much. They're already so down on themselves. So the thing is, if you're so hypercritical of yourself throughout all those years of struggling, you might actually get right there, and then you're not going to take it. Osha azai kishu samuch eitzel pesach. You're right in front of the Pesach. Az miskaber lavasitra achav abal davar mod mod. Or sometimes you're right there, and then you hate yourself for not grabbing it. But really, the sitra achra was very powerful in that moment. Rahman al-Islam. Bizgaber's gadol v'nora mod mod. Again, this is how it goes. This is the process. But it doesn't allow us to get inside. We run away, we fall back. This is how it goes. That the baldavar, the sitra achar, the yetzer hara, adam samoch mamish l'shara kedusha, when they see that we're about to get to the kedusha, the kimachi yichnos, that where our hand is on the door is right there. It's starting to turn. We're starting to open the door. Azai hu mispashet Allah behisgabros gadol ma'od ma'od. The yetzer is going to come at us with all its strength. Rahman al-Islam. That's why the sugya we're learning in the Gemara, Max, right, in the mornings. Why specifically by shofar do Chazal say we need to do something? Kedei la'arbe v'sasatan. Why by shofar? Why don't we have to do something la'arbe v'sasatan by tefillin? Because, tefillin is also the highest, but because there's something about shofar that's so special that in that moment the satan's going to try and get us. We have to do something to fight against it. Al kein sarach az hischaskas gadol negdo. V'shemanu mitzadik amiti shamar. And we heard from a tzadik amiti that said, it's such a cool thing he says now. She'ilu haya omer lo echad. The tzaddik said about himself, if someone had told me, yeh mi sheyeh, whoever it was, I don't care who it was, be'ez she'asak ba'avodas Hashem b'tchilaso, if someone would have said the following to me when I was younger, when I was starting my path of avoda, achi, my brother, chazek ve'echoz atzmacha, strengthen yourself. Hayisi ratz umizdaris ma'od ba'avodasu yisbarach. I would have run and I would have had so much more zrizus and strength in my avoda. Kigam alav avar kol hanal. Because if he would have shown me that he went through all of this, and he would have therefore strengthened me and told me ahead of time, it's not going to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. Don't think when you fall that means something about you. It doesn't mean anything about you. It just means keep working. It doesn't mean there's no interpretation to make about yourself. If someone would have told me that, if someone would have told me that, my avoda would have been different. But I never heard this from anyone. I never had chizuk from anybody. So finishing up here, if somebody wants to enter Avodas Hashem, you have to know. You have to know this. And you have to strengthen yourself a lot. And do what you can. Right? Do what you can. You can't do more than you can do. You can't do more than you can do. So do what you can do. And when many days and many years pass, Tichnos levetach be'ezraso yizbarach l'soch shari kedusha, ki Hashem yizbarach mali racham and verotz b'avodas chamod. You're gonna get there. Are you gonna know that you're there? I don't know. That goes back to our question. But you're gonna get inside. Ki Hashem is mali rachamim, and Hashem wants your avoda. Vida, and know shekol hatnuos v'atakos, and every single movement and every single turn away from the gashmis that you make, every single turn you make away from taiva ra'ah and nefila and all these things, sha'ata nitak v'netak b'chol pam eze ma'at min gashmis lavodasu yisbarach, that you turn towards Hashem, kulam miskabtzim u'mischabrim u'miskashim u'bam le'ezrascha be'ezat tzorach. Think about this. Maybe it's an unbelievable thing he's saying here. Maybe you fell to a certain sin every single day this year. But maybe every single day that you ended up falling to that sin, beforehand, there was a full day of back and forth fighting in your mind not to do it. So you had like hours and hours and hours accumulated of turning away from the taiva, turning away from the gashmias towards Hashem. Now, most of us, if at the end of that process we fall, we just think that we fell. I fell. I was fighting and I failed. I was fighting and I lost. I was in the boxing match and I lost. So once I lost, I lost. It's over. That's it. He's saying no. He's saying in the end, all the moments, every single movement of turning away, of resisting, of trying not to, every single one of those movements counts, is real, is there, and it's all gathered together. They're mischaber and they're miskasher, and they all come to your help. They're all there behind you, giving you strength, trying to help you. Dahainu, kisheyesh chas v'shalom eze dochak ve'ez tzara, when you're in a moment of difficulty, chas v'shalom, they will all come to try and help you. V'dasha adam tzarach lavar al gesher tzar me'od me'od. This is the famous line from Menachem. And you have to know that a person has to walk on a very narrow bridge. V'haklal v'ha'ikr, and the klal and the ikr is shelo yispach klal, to not allow it to make you consumed by fear. It's not easy. It's a narrow bridge, but to not allow it to yourself to be consumed by fear, that you stop walking, and no matter how many times you fall off the bridge, because it's very narrow and it's inevitable that you'll fall off, you get out of the water, you climb back up, and you start walking again, and you do it again and again and again. It doesn't matter how wet you are, because it's not about looking at the results. It's about the continuation. It's about the keeping it going, and that brings us back to what we started with. Is just this, I think, incredible chiddush that Rav Meir is saying, that tshuva means that I'm committing to never stop doing tshuva. That's what tshuva means. I'm relating to this sin not as something I'll never do again. Of course, I'll try not to do it again, but I have no idea if I'll do it again. But what I'm committing to is that I'll never stop trying to not do it again. I'll never stop doing tshuva on it. And I think, just to connect it to this week's parsha, Parshas Teitzei, that's on some level also the inyan of this week's parsha, because the parsha is about what? Teitzei lemilchama alayvecha, when you go out to war against your enemy. And it's kind of interesting, like it strikes me. Aloyvecha, it's like this enemy already exists. It's not like you're going to face an enemy. It's like oivecha, it's your enemy. And I don't know how it could have said it differently, so I'm not saying it's like a kasha, but it's the language is like when you go out to war on your enemy, it almost sounds like, oh, you this is an existing enemy, right? Like you have an enemy. You know this enemy. It's your enemy. You have this enemy. It exists. When you go out to war on it. So what does it mean you have an enemy? Oivecha, it's your enemy. Yeah, because every single one of us has something that is our enemy. This person, it's getting angry. This person, it's taivas nashim. This person, it's taivas kavod. This person, it's taivas mammon. This person, it's whatever it is. Every person has oivecha, has something that they already know is their oiv. What's the avoda? The avoda is don't ever stop going out to battle on it. That's the point. Now, are you in control of whether you win, quote unquote, or not? No, you're not. Because what's the hemshach of the pasuk? Unisano Hashem elokecha b'yadecha. Hashem will give you that. Will give you the enemy, hand the enemy over. So when will Hashem do that? I don't know. That's not in my hands. What's in my hands? Teitzei milchama alevecha, to go out again and go out again and go out again. And specifically alevecha, the enemy that's already your enemy. Meaning, don't think it's only something new, something you haven't started yet, so now you have to go out to war against it. No, the thing that's already oivecha, that's your enemy, it's yours because you've been struggling with this your whole life, and in your mind, you've failed a million times. No, Teitzei melchama, you go out against it again and again and again. That's the chizuk of the parsha. So that's the avodah vel. That's the avodah of tshuva. Okay, shkoyach.
Yeah.